All right, so if you remember, the work for today is just page 3 of week 5 problems, questions 8 through 14, right? So hopefully we finished page 1 on Monday, page 1 on Monday. Hopefully we finished page 2 on Tuesday and Wednesday. Right, hopefully we finished problems 1 through 7 yesterday, and today we're going to do 8 through 14. And the problems that I'm going to do with you are going to be 8, 9, and 10. You guys got to do 11, 12, 13, and 14. All right, so, right, and these problems are going to be pretty much exactly the same as the problems that we did yesterday, right? But if you notice about the problems that we did yesterday, they all ended in that plus, right? That last term has a plus before it. So these are going to be a little bit different because some of these have a negative at the end, right? This one has a negative in the middle. So we're going to see how that's going to change our problems. So I'm moving on to the homework help. So be sure that you have your pencil and paper out right now and are ready to get started. So, right, to start us off with number 8. Right, so let's just set up the problem first, right? So we're going to put the first and the last in the corners. Right, first and the last in the corners. Remember that the minus stays with 32. And we multiply the first and the last together, right? Negative 32x squared. That's where we get this term in the top. And that middle term always goes in the bottom. So every term has a place. The first and the last go into the corners, and then we multiply them together to put it up here, and that middle term goes in the bottom. So now we got to think about, right, the numbers that multiply to negative 32 and add to 4. So the way how this is different is if this problem is negative, right, we could think about all the numbers that multiply to negative 32. Well, we could say like negative 1 and positive 32, or positive 1 and negative 32, right? Negative 2 and 16, or positive 2 and negative 16. So it's kind of like every factor has a pair with it, right? The opposite. So either factor 1 is negative or factor 2 is negative. Right? So let's just add these together. Let's see what we get. 32x and negative 1x makes 31x. Then when we switch the negatives, we're going to get negative 31x. Negative 2x and 16x gives us 14x. And then when we switch the negatives, we get negative 14x. Okay, negative 4x and 8x gives us 4x. And then when we switch around the negatives, we get negative 4x. Right, but we wanted positive 4x, right? Let's double check. That 4 is positive. Yep. So that's the one we want. Negative 4x and 8x. Oops. All right, so then we want to fill it into our generic rectangle, right? We just put an 8x and negative 4x here, so we could just put them in either two boxes here. So now, right, the only two things that could multiply together to give us x squared are x and x, right? The other way you could think about it is, right, both of these guys have an x, or, right, both of these guys have an x, so we could put an x on top, right? Both of these guys have an x, so we could put an x to the side. And then there's no number before it, right? Because the only number that goes into 1 and 8 is 1. The only number that goes into 1 and negative 4 is 1, right? So also, if we put x's there, we drop down, drop across. So now we got to think like x times what is negative 4x, right? X times negative 4. So we could drop the negative 4 down there, and then we just have to think negative 4 times what is negative 32, right? we know 4 times 8 is 32. So negative 4 times 8 is negative 32. Since there's a plus 8 there, there's a plus 8 there. We got our length, we got our width. We just fill it into the answers. Negative 4 and x minus 4 times x plus 8. Right, a length of x minus 4, a width of x plus 8. Alright, so the next one, right, like always, let's set up the problem. The first and the last go into the corners of the generic rectangle. Now we gotta multiply, right, 4 and 9 to get 4x squared and 9 together to get 36x squared. The middle term goes in the bottom of the diamond. So now we're looking for numbers that multiply to 36x squared and add to 12x. Right? It's positive, and it's positive, so we only have to think about positive numbers, right? Here are all the numbers that multiply to 36x squared, right? We could have 1x and 36x, 2x, right, which gives us 37. 2x and 18x gives us 20. 3x and 12x gives us 15x. 4x and 9x gives us 13x. 6x and 6x gives us 12x, right? That's what we wanted. So we're going to fill in a 6x and 6x right there, which also means that these two missing boxes are both going to be 6x. All right, so now when we're doing this, right, we should think about the greatest common factor, right? They both have an x. But what's the biggest number that goes into 4 and 6? Right? Well, 1 goes into both of them, 2 goes into both of them, 3 just goes into 6, 4 just goes into 4, right? And obviously can't be bigger than 4. So, our greatest common factor was 2, right? 2 is the biggest number that goes into 4 and 6. Right, so we're going to put a 2x here, and same thing here, right? 4 and 6 is 2. They both got an x. All right, so now we had 2x, 2x, so let's drop it. So how many 2x's fit into 6x? 3. Positive 3. So that positive 3 drops down, and then we have 3 times what is 9? 3 times 3 is 9, so we put a 3 there. We see our length and our width are both 2x plus 3. So we fill in our answer, and we got that one too. Alright, so now for the last problem that I'm going to do with you guys is this one. Okay, so 24x squared plus 22x minus 10, right? Those are all pretty big numbers. Is there a way to make it smaller? Right? You might have been concerned about here, right? Like 4x squared, 12x, 9, those are pretty big. But there's no number that goes into 4, 12, and 9, right? The only numbers that go into 4 are 2 and 4, right? 2 goes into 4 and 12, but not 9. And 4 goes into 4 and 12, but not 9. Let's think about here. Is there a number that goes into 24, 22, and 10? Yeah, well, they're all even. And we know that 2 goes into all even numbers, right? If you count by 2s, that's all the even numbers. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Right? So we're going to take out a 2. Right? Reverse distributive property, right? 2 times 12x squared is 24x squared. 2 times 11x is 22x. And 2 times minus 5 is minus 10. Now remember when we set up the problem that we want to use what's inside the parentheses. Okay, so for the first and the last, go in the corners, 12x squared and minus 5. And then we multiply them together. 12x squared times negative 5 is negative 60x squared. And that middle term goes down to the bottom. So now numbers that multiply to negative 60x squared, there's a lot of them. Right, we have negative 1 and 60x, which gives us 59x. Oops, I forgot about some of these negatives. That looks like it took care of that. 59x, or we could have 1 and negative 60x, which gives us negative 59x. Right, we're looking for 11. Negative 2 and 30x gives us 28x, and 2 and negative 30x gives us negative 28x. Negative 3 and 20x gives us 17x. 3 and negative 20x gives us negative 17x. Negative 4x and 15x gives us 11x, right? That's what we wanted, right? So at this point, we don't even need to finish out the rest of the table, because we already found our answer. We could have just gone ahead and put 15x and negative 4x if we wanted, right? But I'm going to go ahead and finish out the rest of the table. Right. There's the one we wanted. Right, so we drop them in there, 15x and negative 4x, which means we could also put them here. Right, so 15x and negative 4x. So now we got to think about what's the biggest number that goes into 12x squared and negative 4x, right? Well, it's going to be 4x, right? 4x goes into 4. They both have an x, and then 4 goes into 12 and 4. Right, same thing here. They both have an x, and the biggest number that goes into 12 and 15 is 3. So we got that. So now we drop it. Oops. So now we drop it down and across, and we get, right, same thing. So now, like, 4x times what is negative 4x? Well, we just want it to be negative, so we'll just put a minus 1 there, which means we could put a minus 1 down there. And negative 1 times what? Negative 1 times what is negative 5? Just 5, right? Positive 5, so we drop a positive 5. And there we got our answer. So remember that the 2 is going to drop down to be on the outside. Okay. Oops. Sorry about that. Alright, so we have our length and our width. But remember, since we took out that 2 in the beginning, the 2 is going to stay on the outside. Right, 2, and we have a length of 4x plus 5, and a width of 3x minus 1. Oh, I forgot to mention, right, here, they both, going down, they both have negatives, right? So we want a negative here and a negative here. We want to look for that row or column that has all negatives, and that'll inform us about the negative, right? Same thing happened in the first problem, if you recall. Oops. Right, problem 8. Right, we see how this row had all negatives, so we're going to make it a negative here. Anyways. And yeah, we have arrived at our final answer.